Okay, so today I'm going to be tying a nymph pattern that I came up with myself that I call the Simu-Drake. And the Simu-Drake is a real imitation of a couple different mayfly hatches. This is supposed to very closely imitate either a Heptagenia or a Dronella flavilinea mayfly nymph. Those are the scientific names that I honestly couldn't tell you what exactly hatches those are a part of, what the common name would be. A lot of people will probably call a Flavilinea something like a March Brown, even though that is actually a different mayfly nymph. You've probably seen these mayfly nymphs in the water, though. They're the ones that look kind of very wide and stout with just very strong legs off to either side. And so that's the look we're really trying to imitate here, is that very strong legged look. Um, I'm tying this one a little bit larger in about a size 12 here, but you really can tie this one any size, and I've had a lot of success with it tying it very small, like a size 16 or 18, just because it is such a realistic mayfly nymph. I've found that a lot of times when you have picky fish, they will go ahead and eat this. So I started my thread base, have a bead head on it. I'm doing at least 6 strands of pheasant tail. You can do a little more than that, but you want 6 for the legs later on, so make sure you have that. I'm putting copper wire in on the side, and I'm going to use a lighter color of dubbing. You could use yellow or green or really any color you want, but I really do like to have a two-tone on this fly, so you want to have something that is a different color than those pheasant tail fibers, because that is going to create the two-tone on the top. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and just create a dubbing noodle on here, and I will wrap this in, get it nice and tight, and then we can start our body from there. I always like tying fairly realistic. I don't know what it is, just something, about trying to really closely match an insect with your fly tying. To me, really it kind of encapsulates what I feel like fly fishing is all about, is trying to realistically match the hatches you are seeing in the water. I always find there's a fine balance between movement and realism. So it seems like the more realistic you tend to go with a fly, the less movement you tend to have. On a nymph like this, I don't think it matters too much because it's just going to be tumbling down the stream in the current. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these pheasant tail fibers up. I want them actually slightly off to the side, so as much right on top as you can, but if you start them a little bit quartering off to the side, that copper wire is actually going to pull it kind of over the top. So, don't worry if it feels like it's off. You can adjust it as you go. Wrap that copper wire up the body to create your segments here. And as you go, like I mentioned, just make sure that that pheasant tail fiber is right on top, because we want it to be a really nice, even two-tone. So I'm going to catch my copper wire, helicopter it off to break it free. And you can see it did even pull it a little bit past over the top. So you could fix that if you want. It's not a huge deal, but you can see the two-tone that we're going for there. Next I'm going to use, this is part of a turkey quill feather. So you just take a turkey feather, cut off a section, try to keep them stuck together. You'll notice that the turkey feather fibers kind of naturally stick together and create a flat surface. So try not to separate them as you take them off. And I'm going to catch it in. That's going to be my wing case for this, because I'm going to use these pheasant tail fibers actually for legs here. So now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling them back, separating them apart, and just catching them off to the sides. And on the bigger versions of this, I separate all the legs out so that they're coming out at different locations, so it really looks like different legs. But on the smaller versions, I will actually use the pheasant tail fibers as my wing case as well, pull it all the way up to the bead, and then split them off to the side, 2 and 2 or 3 and 3, and and use them as legs just coming straight out from the bead itself. And I found it looks pretty good as well. But for the bigger ones here, I will separate them out so that they look like they're coming out from separate locations, like a real mayfly. And that's going to add, a touch of realism here. All right, so I've got those tied in. I've got them separated out where I want them to be. Next step here is going to be adding more of that dubbing. And again, just same color as I used before. I find a lot of times when you look at a real mayfly nymph in the water, that underside is always lighter. And typically, it is really the same color all the way front to back on it. So you can tell different segments on it, but it really usually is the same color. So a little thicker. We're eventually going to pick this out a little bit so that it does have a little bit of just texture to it, and is a little thicker than the abdomen that we tied. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap it forward and very carefully just adjust my legs so that I'm not catching them in weird angles here. I want them going, kind of straight out to the sides from here, flat on either side. So just take your time, wrap it forward, work that dubbing through those legs to create your thorax. Again, if it's, a little bushy and there's some that's loose here, totally fine. That's a kind of a nice extra look to it. All right, you can see I'm adjusting my legs. I'm getting those, right where I want them to be. And I'm going to add just a little bit more dubbing to this, and I'll go ahead and finish this up here. So a little more dubbing. Again, keeping this looser than I did on the abdomen. It doesn't need to be super tight. Wrap forwards, and I can trap those front legs there. See, a little piece came out. That's totally fine. All right. Okay. Now that I've got that wrapped all the way forwards, just doing final adjustments on those legs. I'll kind of show you how they're sitting out to the side here in a minute. So you can see, doesn't look completely perfect. That's right. We're still going to adjust these legs. They're not just going to ride like that. So it's okay if they're not perfect. Pull that turkey quill up over the top, and I don't typically use flash on this. I'm aiming for this to be a very natural looking fly, so I don't want to create too much, unusual or unrealistic look. This is meant to really kind of mimic realism when a trout is really picky, and I need something that looks exactly like the bugs that are coming down the stream. So whip finish this. Couple of wraps of whip finish. Don't go too big on it so you don't build up too much of a head or a thread base on your head there. Snip it off. And then the next step we're going to do is we are going to actually trim these legs. So you want to start trimming these legs a little bit long. I cut them off straight flush. And by a little bit long, I'd say, probably something like maybe half the length of the body overall. Again, this is imitating a mayfly that has very stout legs. And now I'm just adjusting with my finger, and what I'm trying to do is put a 90-degree bend in each of the legs facing forward. So I want it to go ahead and just bend forwards at 90 degrees. And again, might just take a little bit of time. You can use a bodkin as well to put that bend into the legs. Which makes it a little easier here. I'm trying to struggle through just with my fingers. And you'll see once we get that bend in there, it really does stay pretty well. And you can see how buggy it actually looks with those legs. So, we can make some final adjustments, trim some of those long fibers of dubbing out of there on the top. You can trim these legs to, the exact size you want if you feel like they're a little bit long still on it. But that essentially is your fly right there. That's looking super buggy, as you can see, and looks exactly like a Heptagenia or a Flavilinea nymph. So last step then, I do like to, and this is maybe the part that's a little less realistic, I add pretty good dab of head cement or UV epoxy up on top of it to create that really dark and kind of shiny, solid nymphal shuck on the top, that thoracic plate. So this helps, hold your thread into place as well, but just also creates, a very solid, shiny kind of iridescent, catches the light nymphal shuck that separates it from the rest of the abdomen. I use UV for pretty much all my flies because you can create a little bubble on top of it like that very easily. And it just, to me, catches a lot of light still, like I said, and looks super realistic in the water. Hardens really quickly, which is nice as well. So I'm just hitting this with the UV light, and then we'll be all done. This fly is going to be ready to fish. So would love to see you guys tie this up. Let me know what you think. It's a pretty easy fly to tie once you start getting them down. I took a little bit of time to make it real nice for you guys, but you can usually tie this one in like 5-6 minutes if you're really going quick on it. Whip up a bunch of them and let me know how they're looking for you and how they're fishing for you. And go ahead and drop a comment below and let me know what fly you think I should tie next. But thank you guys so much for watching. And again, that is the Simu-Drake.